to Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there, and way second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. It's been a while. As you can see, my background is different, so I had to move. So that's why we were kind of took a couple of weeks off. But a lot has happened since last time we spoke, because we spoke the day after the London series ended. And side note, I don't know how, but that winning that game that Sunday in London has somehow sparked the Mets season.
Yeah, it's great. They're winning right now. They're beating the Yankees 3-0.
Yeah, so they'll be 500, right? But they were like 11 games under.
Think so.
Yeah, they'll be 500. They're 38 and 39.
500.
And what? They were like 11 games under going into London.
They're bad, real bad.
That's actually crazy. But the Phillies are pretty much right where they left off leaving London. So when they won the Saturday game in London, they were 26 games over 500. As of recording on Wednesday night, the Phillies are again 26 games over 500 at 53 and 27. They came home and, quite honestly, they pitched. Zach Wheeler went off the first night against the Red Sox, and you kind of thought, okay, all those rumors about the London hangover seemed kind of false. And then they came out and got absolutely rocked the next two nights. Went down to Baltimore, won a scrappy extra inning game, and then got rocked twice again, including Wheeler giving up 4 home runs. And then they came home, Padres and Diamondbacks, kind of the two last NLCS foes for the Phillies. Won both those series, 2-1. Probably could have won every single game in that homestand. Gave a couple away, some lack of hitting with runners in scoring position. And then the middle of this week here took 2 out of 3 from Tigers in Detroit, and then they head right back home. So this schedule is really weird. They head right back home for a 4-game series with the Marlins, and then I think they go on the road again. So I don't really understand that scheduling. But outside of the JT Realmuto news that he probably won't be back until right after the All-Star break, what has been kind of your main takeaways from technically up and down, because they're 500 since they left London? I think a game over because they were 25 games over when they lost the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaways on the offensive side, and something that I kind of mentioned to you today when we were talking earlier after the day game, but I can't decide if the lineup is deep or not, because you wrestle with the names, and you see a lot of big names in the lineup, and some of them are big locally. Like, I don't really consider Bryson Stott like a big name, a household name throughout Major League Baseball, but we've become so accustomed to him the last 2 years of him in the majors and him kind of going up through our farm system, being a high draft pick. So like us as fans are very accustomed to the name and expect big things. So on paper we see Stott hitting 5th or 6th, and Castellanos hitting 5th or 6th, and Brandon Marsh, this guy who started off the season so hot, hitting 7th, and it's like, wow, like even with JT being out, this lineup's very deep. But then you kind of look at the numbers, and Stott's numbers and percentiles as far as Baseball Savant goes are awful. Yeah. And Marsh had a really good day today. The last game of the Tigers series, I think he had 4 hits. But since he's come back from injury, and even before that, he's been, bad. I know you and I were big advocates of play this guy every day, but I'm comfortable saying that, he can't hit lefties. The splits are very bad, and there's enough of a sample size to kind of go forward and say that he is just a platoon bat at this point that'll give you above average defense if you have to play him against the lefty. But I got out of work today and I was listening to the end of the game on the radio when I was driving home and into the recap. And I know he was out for probably 5 or 6 games, however many he missed when he was hurt, Marsh. But that was his first home run today since the end of April. Like, it was a long time to go homerless, and I feel like we've kind of seen that from him the last few years. Well, I guess year. We only had him for 1 full season, but he starts off strong and then kind of fades out a bit as the season goes on. And we've seen that from Bohm in the past, and knock on wood, so far he's been able to sustain that. He had the one bad month in May, but he's really picked it back up in June. So we see the names there, and I think we kind of get blinded by the start of the season and what Marsh was doing, and it's like, oh well, Marsh is back, the lineup's automatically deeper. Well, no, he was a net negative for the majority of May and the beginning of June when he was playing. So my biggest takeaway from the last 2 weeks is that they really need another righty in that lineup to kind of lengthen it, I think, because the depth that we saw in April is kind of starting to fade. Sosa was great while Turner was out, but since June he has not been good. It's kind of what we talked about of him getting exposed if he had to become an everyday player. It took longer than I expected, at least, but now those flaws are starting to show. So I'm out on Luis Robert, but I think if they make a move at the deadline, or when they make a move at the deadline, I think it has to be a righty, just to kind of pick up what that lineup kind of lacks in depth a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, well, it doesn't help that Whit Merrifield has been awful. Pache, who it kind of looked like they fixed at times last year, has been really bad. David Dahl is what he is, and Cody Clemens is on his way back, and he's been playing the outfield during his rehab, so I would assume, Cody Clemens is an upgrade. He's probably the best bench player on this team right now. But I really feel like you almost need 2 outfielders, because you sent Rojas down. You don't trust him to be here. You either need a righty, either way you need a righty platoon, left or center, wherever you want to put Marsh. And then the other one, you need an actual righty bat every day, whether that's center or left, whatever you decide to do, where you're more comfortable playing Marsh, which I think is left. But there being more corner outfielders available at the deadline than center fielders might dictate that. So I really think they need 2, because like we said, Marsh is unfortunately looks like a platoon player. And I will say, until they do fix something at the deadline, I think what he gives you defensively when he gets on the bases is still better. I'd rather have him out there than like Pache and Merrifield, because either way it feels like they're going 0 for 4. So I think I'd rather just have the best overall player out there at this point, because those guys aren't giving you anything anyway. So at least let me have the added bonuses of having Marsh out there until we get to the deadline and this gets sorted. But for the meantime, like Pache and Merrifield just look unplayable.
Yeah, Merrifield, it's been weird. It seems like the at-bats are better, but every at-bat kind of just ends in a lifeless fly ball that, doesn't really do anything to progress. Like, even the outs aren't productive when you kind of think of what we expected Merrifield to be. And right. I'm completely, one of the biggest things when Turner was coming back from injury was, what do they do? Who do they send down? And they ended up sending down Rojas because they didn't want to lose Pache. Unless they're going to trade him, I expect him to be the move when JT gets back, because he's not good. They're not fixing him. I don't think there's anything to fix there. It seems like he kind of falls in that swing out of his shoes mold. He doesn't really try and hit. He doesn't stay within himself at all. It seems like every time I'm watching him, he's striking out. And I just looked it up. I'm shocked to see that his strikeout percentage this year is only 34%, which is extremely high. Like when we traded for Marsh, he was leading the league at like 36.5%. So the fact that I'm saying only 34%, it feels like that guy strikes out constantly, Pache. So I don't know. I get what they're trying to do, keep guys in the system. He's young. He once upon a time had pedigree, but I don't know. I think that ship's run its course, and I'm perfectly fine getting rid of him.
Yeah, I kind of understand why they're doing it because you want to preserve some depth. So when they
like Merrifield's not going to play center, and
right,
Pache can, so I get it. But
and the problem is, like, kind of before the season, early in the season, I kind of brought up the fact that I was really comfortable with the Phillies' position player depth if someone got hurt, and so far that's been true. Like Clemens filled in nice, Sosa filled in nice. Marchand has done a decent job when JT went out. They lose a lot of that now that these guys have come up because they can't send them back down. They can't send Dahl down. He'll be, he gets DFA'd or whatever his contract situation is. Pache's out of options, so he can't either. And Jordan Luplow, who was in AAA having a decent season, just tore his ACL. So all of a sudden, all that depth you had is gone. So I could kind of understand why they're being a little more on the cautious side with it right now. Of course, they could always pick up Scott Carey's contract if they need to, but I don't know if they'll do that. I think there might come a point this season where that needs to happen, though, if Pache and Dahl are both out of here. So we'll keep an eye on that. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of kind of you're on Harper and Bohm's backs right now, it feels like, and whatever you get from anyone else has kind of been gravy. I don't know how much longer that's sustainable. I don't think it is. I mean, we know Bohm doesn't really have this long-term pedigree. Now, could this be him turning a corner and does have this year all the way through? Maybe. We know Harper does have this kind of, history, and he could. I don't think he'll be this hot where it's every ball is in the gap or over the wall. That's not going to continue, but we know he can do it. June Schwarber was, instead of 12 home runs, it was a 300 average, which was a little funny. Castellanos is hit or miss, and Turner, not a lot of power yet. I don't know, like he's not even running right. Like that ball that Harper hit in the gap, was that Tuesday night? I was surprised that like he was like a dead stop sign at third base. Like it wasn't even like a maybe. He was barely at third, and I was just very shocked by that. He's not running 100% still, so that's something to keep an eye on. But I want to get over to pitching quick. Yeah, Wheeler, Suarez, and Nola all had one bad start since London. Other than that, and Sanchez had one too. So all four of them had one bad start, and then the other two they've all have been really solid. Taijuan Walker sucks, and they gave him the Phantom IL, which was hysterical. But then, unfortunately, in place of him, Spencer Turnbull got hurt today with some shoulder soreness or discomfort, whatever they named it. So it looks like Michael Mercado, who came up when they put Walker on the IL and was working out of the bullpen, probably going to be the fifth guy with whatever happens to Turnbull. So nice to have him. But as I mentioned, it'd be really nice if Mick Abel was like playable right now, because that would be maybe a good time to try him out. But that just can't happen with his ERA close to 7, his WHIP close to 2. So
yeah. So my first thing I must say is I know that he's making a lot of money, and you have to trot Walker out there because of the contract situation, but I fully attribute Spencer Turnbull's injury to him. The fact that you ramped Turnbull up as a starter to start the season, and you said, okay, Walker's back. We're paying him probably $10 million more than he should be making, and so we have to put him in the rotation. Turnbull get back to the bullpen, and then everybody in the world knows that Turnbull is having a better season than Walker. Walker shouldn't be in the rotation. Keep Turnbull in there because he was absolutely shoving to start the season. And you have to Phantom IL Taijuan Walker. He says that he's 100% healthy, and then the next day he magically has a blister on his finger. And they said that he won't be off the IL until he can properly grip his splitter. So now it's like, oh, Turnbull, yeah, you've been throwing 2 innings out of the bullpen, but all of a sudden you're asking a guy who hasn't thrown more than 60 innings in like 4 years to go from starter to reliever to ramp back up to starter. And all of a sudden his first start back in the rotation, he's got shoulder soreness in the 4th inning. It's like, oh, I wonder why when you're telling a guy to get hot and cold and switch roles to ask him to throw more innings. Yeah, you're going to mess around with his arm and screw it up. Now, he said after the game that he wasn't overly concerned, but I don't know. I just messing around with a guy's role when he's already had this big injury history in the arm. It's not like his injury history is, hamstrings or legs that's not, directly attributed to pitching, but it's he's had Tommy John and now you're messing with his shoulder. It's like that's problematic, and the history is there, but I think some of it can be attributed to them moving him around so much, expecting him to do different things just because you're trying to justify a contract that everyone who pays attention knows that bridge is already burnt and that ship's already sailed. It's I don't know. Walker's just annoying, and that whole situation, because now you're behind the 8 ball. Something like, do you try Abel? A month and a half before the trade deadline, the Braves were losing now 7-game doubleheader 2-0. So if they lose that game, you have an 8-game lead in the division.
It'll be 7.5 because they played a doubleheader today.
Well, they won, right? It's 7.5 right now.
It was 8. It was 8 after the Phillies won.
Yeah, and if they lose right now, then it'd go back to 8.
Oh wait, yeah, it does. Okay, yeah, that's right.
So say you have an 8-game lead in the division, you're 26 games over 500. Do you call Abel up a month and a half before the trade deadline and just say, hey, if any team says, well, this, if he, all of his value in AAA is gone. Like you said,
Right.
There's a 7 ERA and a 2 whip, but they're using different balls in the minors with the Griffin stuff. Do you just trot him out on the major league stage when you have this much of a cushion and he's, ramped up as a starter, and say, hey, we needed a spot start, so we called up our top pitching prospect. Also, we can trade him because we don't value him that much. I don't think they do it just because the numbers in AAA are so bad, but you've given yourself
in the games either. Yeah.
You've given yourself enough of a cushion if you sandwich it around an off day, or Thompson's been so big on the bullpen needing work because these starters are just eating up innings and throwing so well. You can give yourself a cushion to mess around for one start and just try and get some value back before the trade deadline if that's what you really wanted to do. With that being said, I think they're off next Monday, so the 5th starter spot won't be relevant again until July 6th. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of giving yourself basically a ghost start that day where you can just go with the 4 big guys this weekend, off day on Monday, and then reset with Wheeler on Tuesday next week. So it's null and void until the 6th if you really want it to be. But I don't know. I'd be curious to see if they play around with 8 and the deadline's close and he's been so bad. Just try and boost the value while you have cushion.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Maybe getting
it can't hurt at this point.
I mean, yeah, it's not. I mean, it's hard to get worse than what Taijuan Walker's giving you because you're losing all those starts pretty much anyway. So I can't see how it could really be worse when you're already losing what Walker's giving you. I don't know. Maybe it helps his confidence. Maybe getting called up to the majors, they believed in him enough. Maybe it helps him. I don't know. Maybe being in front of Caleb Cotham every day helps because he's not right now. And when he was every day in spring training, he honestly looked kind of decent. And then he went down to the AAA where Cotham's no longer keeping an eye on him, no longer giving him, day-to-day tips. Maybe they do have a call once a week. I don't know, but not every day. So, now he has that again in front of him. Maybe it helps. I don't know. And I think it is a worthy gamble because right now this is your number one trade chip. If he can get himself straight, right, it's probably Crawford right now, but you'd like it to be Abel. think I'm going to hold on to Painter and Miller for pretty much, I don't know, if someone – I mean, Kyle Tucker's not getting traded now because the Astros are actually good. I don't know if those guys are worth
It's probably Taylor Ward.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Taylor Ward's not going to cost you them. So, yeah, I think maybe try it. It couldn't hurt. Obviously, it doesn't do anything. Starting his major league clock, he's not going to stay up, so I don't really know how that works with service time. I don't know. Maybe they do try it. It would definitely be interesting. Wouldn't be totally opposed to it because, again, he's just filling in. He's not filling in for Zach Wheeler or Ranger Suarez. He's filling in for Taijuan Walker, who already sucks. So it doesn't matter. If it was one of those guys who's filling in for, I'd be a little more hesitant just because then all of a sudden you have two big gaps in your rotation. But just keeping it at one.
Like by no means am I saying, oh, you're up 8 games in the division. Start messing around because it's good.
Right.
Like the Braves are playing really well, and I'm not saying the Phillies are bad by any means, but the last 2 weeks have been 500 or a game over 500. So I'm not saying like, oh, start trying things to mess around, but the quality of Major League Baseball is definitely down in terms of record-wise, the number of good to great teams. So like, it's not like you're gonna get bombarded with scheduling and stuff like that. Like if you want to do it, a spot start. I think they have the Nationals coming up soon, or I know this weekend's the Marlins. They're not going to do it this weekend. We have the line for that. 4 big names, but like if you want to do it in a week or two, you have maybe an even lesser opponent in that 5th spot lines up, or if you could kind of sandwich it around an off day if Turnbull needs a break or something. It'd be, like July 12th, 13th, and 14th, if you want to do it after the Dodgers series when Oakland's in town, even closer to the deadline, right before the All-Star break, to give one of those guys a break, it kind of lines up in your favor. You'll just have a big series with Atlanta, so you could kind of gauge where you're at and see how that standings lead fluctuates, and kind of go there if you experiment it that way.
Yeah, I could see that. Just really quick note, bullpen really good still. The back four have been great. And Dominguez and Soto have both been really good since May started, honestly. So all of a sudden you have, and Ruiz has been a decent, for whatever he is, like a decent long man.
Ruiz has been the best kind of garbage time pitcher that we've had, and it's a much needed upgrade over like the Dylan Coveys of the world that we've had the last few years. And Matt Moore wasn't awful, but those kind of guys that are like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah. So last thing I want to touch on is the prospects, because I think McGable right now is 3rd. I think he's gonna be 7th when they redo this. I think it's gonna be Painter, Miller, Crawford, Kaba. I think Tait will go up to maybe 5, and I think there's a chance that George Clausen gets up to 7.
Dude, I think I'd flip Tait and Kaba, and I think Clausen might be over Kaba.
Really? Okay.
Clausen, people are saying that he might be the best pitcher in the minors right now.
70 strikeouts in 47 innings compared to just 17 walks. He's only allowed 1 home run, and his ERA is under 1 in 11 games across 2 levels. So, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he was a closer at Minnesota, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think he started as a starter, got Tommy John, and threw him in the bullpen. Yeah.
His numbers were really bad too. When he was a starter at Minnesota, he had a really bad win-loss record, and the ERA was very, very high. So I think they just drafted him with they saw the fastball, and they were like, we can work with that. And it's been pretty crazy with how Preston Mattingly and Brian Barber have kind of come in and just flipped the development system around, especially for pitchers. I think as far as the hitters go, they've been working with the skill sets given. Like, I don't think they've done much to kind of alter what Crawford's doing. And Aiden Miller was always this good. Like, he just fell because he had a wrist fracture in high school. But it's been pretty crazy to see them kind of groom guys like Kirkring out of nowhere last year. Ben Brown, before we traded him, into this high strikeout guy that he's been good at Chicago, but honestly, he was a very late round pick here. And then Clausen, kind of the same thing. You know, he had the fastball and the slider was like maybe graded at 50 or 55 when he was getting in the draft range, and now it's become a plus pitch. So it's been interesting to see how they've kind of hit on those lower level pitching prospect picks, but like Mick Abel's kind of flamed out a bit, which kind of worries me as far as what they can do with a trade value, because it's like, in my mind, I'm seeing the Phillies develop all of these pitchers from lower pedigree. Like, Abel was a Gatorade Player of the Year in Oregon. Right. He was a big-time Oregon State commit. He was a teenage draft pick, perfect game All-American, all this stuff. And the Phillies aren't developing him, but then they're getting guys like Ben Brown and, you know, busted starters from Minnesota and turning them into these, you know, minor league aces. And it's like, well, teams might see that and be scared with Abel. But, yeah, Clausen's stats and the clips, obviously I don't, you know, tune into too many Blue Claws games, but the clips that we've been able to see on Twitter, I know Jack Fritz posted one last week, the home plate view of the slider, and it is a wipeout slider. It's been cool to see how they've been able to work with him up the range a bit.
Yeah, it is nice that they have these guys coming out of nowhere, these small college. Well, Minnesota's not a small college. It's not really a baseball school. It's kind of
it's not a great program,
right? You know, like they with Kirk Green stuff. So, four with the Marlins this weekend. The four aces go. Wheeler, Nolo, Suarez, and Sanchez all pitch. I think 3 out of 4 is a minimum under those circumstances with how bad the Marlins are right now. And this is at home where the Phillies are 31-12. So I would hope at least 3 here. After that, though, a little tricky. Go to the Cubs, go to Atlanta, come home, Dodgers. So a serious 9-game test there, which is why winning these games over this next weekend is going to be really crucial. But we're going to, you know, it's halfway point in the season, so I guess you could say we know a lot about this team. That stretch, I think we're going to learn everything about this team, maybe, at least the pre-deadline version of it. I know they won't have JT, and I know he's trying to itch to get back for that Dodgers series, but the Phillies want to keep him until after the trade or after the All-Star break and have him play when they go to Pittsburgh to start the second half. So we'll see what happens there, but we'll get back somewhere in between there and talk then, and hopefully things are going good and some of those other bats outside of Bohm and Harper start to heat up. And reminder to vote for those guys for the All-Star game, because Bohm and Harper are like 1 and 2 in NL voting right now. It's pretty funny. Yeah. So I know,
vote for Rojas.
Yeah, he's still 7th. So that's insane. Well, I would love to. What happens if he gets in and he's in AAA?
You gotta go.
I gotta look that up.
I don't. He's gotta go.
That's so funny, and it's just a meme at this point. I feel like I think the fan base is bought in. Yeah. It's
like the White Sox were doing. They were trying to get everyone to vote for Martin Maldonado. I don't know. Last time I don't know if he's qualified for the DH. Yeah, I mean, Adley and Salvador Perez are 1 and 2 in the catchers, and I think Jordan and somebody else were the DH guys. So sadly, it's not going to be him.
No, that was funny though. They gave it a good ride, but Rojas actually has a chance. But I think for him to make it, he'd have to knock out one of Marsh or Castellanos actually. So that's not going to happen. Yeah.
I vote every day, and I vote for Marsh and Rojas, but not Castellanos. So
they had a big game on Saturday when I was there.
Yeah,
but
great.
that's about it. I swear, every time I go, he has a big game. I went last April, last year, when he had the 2 home run game. This year, this game, like every time I go, he has a big game. I don't know. But anyway, we'll get back together in sometime in the next 10 days or so, and hopefully they're still winning games. But we'll talk then.